Hi everybody, welcome to the 435 Politics channel here on the Scott Show podcast. We are having a great time today. My name is Scott, and with me today is Joel Heller. He is the Minnesota DFL State Executive Director. Joel, how you doing?
I'm doing fine, Scott. Hello everyone. How's the night going?
Well, it's been a little bit of time since we spoke, except for the time that we just had kind of setting this up.
Mm-hmm.
And what we're going to do is we're going to talk about some of our local races here in Duluth. We're going to kind of keep it local. Then we're going to talk about the governorship and just other crap that's going on in politics, because politics is a weird sort of mixed bag of stuff going on right now, isn't it?
It is. Politics never ends.
But it never ends, because once the election's done, the election starts.
No, I mean, look at right now. We got done with 2016, and we're a year and a half away from the governor's race, and we already have governor candidates crisscrossing all over Minnesota, pitching constituents, trying to win the DFL endorsement, and the Republicans are out there in force too. Yeah. They had a Republican here in town here yesterday or the day before. Kurt Dowd.
Oh, okay, Kurt. Kurt Dowd is the he's the Speaker of the House still, right? Yeah, okay, yeah, he's the Speaker of the House.
Between him and
Jeff Johnson.
Them are the two front runners for the Republicans.
Wow.
And they are, you don't mess around, they are good. They know what they're talking about.
Wow. Well, let's get back to that discussion on the governor's race. But let's first talk about local races that we have coming up here. And some of the other races. I mean, Minnesota is kind of a hotbed of politics all the time. You get to see it because you travel all across this great state of ours. We have school board and city council elections. So in the school board election for at-large, we had Sally Trinka, I think is her name, and Josh Gorman, Harry Welty, and I'm not even going to... Dana is her name. I can't pronounce her last name. It's a very... it's a much longer name. They went 1, 2, 3, 4, I think, in that order in the race. How do you think it's going to go in the general election? Do you think that's going to change too much, or? Well,
with about a month and a half left, just a little less than a month and a half left, I think Sally Trinka is by far going to be the front runner.
Okay.
She's dotted all the I's, she's crossed all the T's, she's talked to parents, she's talked to teachers. She's everything that Duluth's asking for a school board member. But the Harry Welty, Josh Gorham race, I think that's going to be closer than a lot of people think, because people got to remember, in Duluth, we had a turnout, but it was probably one of the lowest turnouts for a primary in the last 10, 15, 20 years. Wow. We didn't have a mayor's race added on to it. We didn't have any of that, so the turnout was just like in the city council races, turnout was low, so there's going to be a lot of ballots, a lot of races that I say here today might be close, and it might be even closer when it comes up to it.
Now, Welty is the only one currently sitting on the school board right now. Annie Harla decided not to run for another term, so we're going to have a new school board member regardless.
Yes,
we could have two, but we could one. And I'm going to agree with you. I think that Sally just shocked me when it came to what happened with the primary election. Her win just kind of surprised me. It came out of nowhere.
Well, I mean, you got to understand, she is a very likable person. So I thought she might have been the front runner from the beginning, because people gravitate towards her. She is very likable, and her son's named Noah, like my son. So I'm a little bit biased on that one. Them Noah's got to stick together. So mine is Josh Gorham did well. Harry Welty, he was 300 votes behind, or 200 votes behind, between the third and second. Again, we go back to what I talked about.
Right. That
turnout was low, so it's a coin flip for that second.
Now, do you think turnout? And we're going to probably talk about this with some of the other ones. Do you think turnout was high in certain categories? Who do you think was the normal voter that went out and voted this primary?
I think it was your typical diehard Democrat or Republican, that your average mom and pop that vote religiously. And just because they didn't turn out for the primary doesn't mean they're going to turn out for the general. Duluth has a tendency of having 60 to 80% of the population get out and vote. We are proud to have that number. And even in a off-year election where you don't have a mayor running, you don't have anything spectacular going on in the news or a presidential election, we're going to have a decent turnout come November. It is just what these candidates are doing between now and November that is going to decide.
Now, do you think part of that, now, we didn't have any primaries in the 1st district, that's Rosie Leffler-Kemp and Kurt Kuhn. They did not have a primary. And neither in the 4th, that's Jill Lofald and the incumbent Art Johnston.
Well,
do you think that's going to change the game a little bit on where candidates are going to want to put their money and their time on elections that also have primary or local district elections?
I see what you're saying, but right now what I know is nobody's going to beat Rose.
Okay.
Nobody is. She's too well liked out in East Duluth. She represents that part of her constituent extremely well. Extremely well. She cares about East High School. She cares about Ordine. She cares about all them other elementary schools out in that area, like Condon, like I can't remember the other one. Anyhow, but she does care. So we'll write that one off as Rose is going to win it.
Okay.
By how much? I think she's going to win bigly.
Bigly. That's the word of the podcast day. Bigly. I like that one.
I think, yeah, truly, Scott. I think the Rose race. Now, if you want to talk and spend a good chunk about the Art Johnson, Jill Lowenthal race, that's a whole other ballgame. I think a lot of money and a lot of time and effort has gone into that part of that race.
On both sides?
On both sides.
Okay.
You see it with all the new lawn signs that come sprouting up when you go drive out and take your son to quick trip out there, or you take him out to Herberts and Gerberts, who my little Noah loves. You see the Art Johnson signs popping up all over, and the Jill Lowenthal signs popping up all over. And I know from our sides, it is a door-knocking mecca in that one.
Yeah.
Because not only do you have Jill Lowenthal running, but a little bit closer, going into the city council, you have Renee Van Nett, who I love to death, and I think she's going to be a great city councilor in that race. So that people are concentrating on West Duluth this year, because that's where the nature of the big races are.
You know, and that brings to the line the question on the city council. Do you think that's also going to make a difference when it comes to the city council at large race? Now, I'll give you kind of a lowdown. You already know, but our listeners don't, or they do, and we just want to highlight it anyway. So Zach Filipovich and Barb Russ are the current incumbents in the city council, and they are running against Janet Kennedy and Rich Updegrove. And so those are the 4 candidates that are running at large city council. And then you talked about Renee Van Nett is running against Howie Hansen for the 4th district city council seat. And the 2nd city council seat, Joel Cypress is running unopposed. Or does he have an opponent?
He has that opponent. He has that Republican.
Okay. I didn't think he had an opponent.
Yeah, well, the Republicans...
That's how important it is to me. Is I think Joel's going to win that one in a walk. I mean, right? Yeah. That's just
Joel's working hard. He's working. He's out door knocking. Hopefully he's door knocking for DFL endorsed candidates, because you get the DFL endorsement, you got to support the endorsed candidates. You can't say, "Hey, I want all the sugar and candy, but I don't want to share it." So I hope he's out door knocking, and Joel's not going to lose.
Joel's not going to lose. All right, but Renee and Howie, I mean, it was kind of close in the primary election. Renee won that primary election, but Howie got second.
Surprised me immensely.
I think it was the incumbent. I think it was the fact that he was the incumbent. He's already there. He's doing stuff.
Tom Furman is a good person.
Yeah.
I may disagree a little bit about some issues, but I agree 90% more than I do Art Johnson, who has now flipped on over and gone to the Republican side, supporting a few other I have Facebook posts where he's sitting there supporting Republicans. So hey, if you're in that district, remember, if you want to support the working person, Renee Van Nat is the person.
Well, now you're talking about Howie Hansen.
Yes, I am.
You said Art Johnson, so I want to fix that.
Potato on that one.
I did go by Howie Hansen's office. He has an office that's right next out to the smokehouse out there, which is delicious, by the way. Check that out if you ever go out to Lincoln Park. But right there is a Pete Stauber sign for Congress.
Yep.
So I mean, if that tells you anything, that tells you the main stuff right there.
But on that same breath, I will not knock Pete Stauber, because Pete Stauber is a good person. Politically, I disagree, polar opposites. But nobody's going to tell me Pete Stauber is a bad person.
Right.
Just politically, we're going to disagree.
Well, and to go back, you were talking about Rosie Leffler-Kemp, and I think Rosie is awesome. So I'll give a shout out to Rosie and say hi, and we'll send this out to her and tell her how great she is.
But
why not? But I mean, yeah, Pete Stauber. I mean, he's a good guy. I mean, a lot of times in politics, we don't deal with people who we absolutely hate.
Yeah, and I mean, here we go. The same thing goes for the city council at large. All right, Janet Kennedy, Rich Updegrove. They're good people, right? But some of us disagree politically on some of their things, and we're going to support another candidate. It does not mean that we won't sit there and back them to the hilt if they get elected, right? It just means at this moment in time, some of us disagree on some of their issues, some of their endorsements, that we're going to vote for the incumbent, Zach and Barb.
Now, do you think it's really a three-person race for one seat, and Zach has got it? I mean, because he really killed it at the primary election, but the rest of it was really close.
You know, I would have sat there and I would have said at the beginning of the election season, yeah, that's the case. But what I've learned the last couple of years of politics is you can't bet on anything anymore. You cannot. I mean, take an instance for the fool that we got in the White House right now.
Yeah.
You can't take nothing for granted. So Zach, who I'm going to put the disclaimer out there, is a good friend of mine, right? And I'm loyal to the fault. I will support my friends more than I will support anything. And I'm loyal to that one. But Zach is working as hard, or if not harder, than if he had lost that general or that primary and going forward. And the rest of these candidates, I just came from Sammy's Chicken Lakeside, and I seen Janet Kennedy holding up lawn signs. This is Sunday, right? Right after Viking football. Smart political move.
Yeah.
Got a lot of people paying attention that, hey, look at me. It is going to be a tight race for all four of them races and all four of them people running for at large. It's going to be a coin flip.
You know, and actually, you saying that it's Vikings Day, it kind of makes sense that she's waving signs and saying hi to people and making her face out there, because who wants to knock on the door on Sunday when somebody's trying to watch football?
No,
I mean, you automatically lose a vote that way. I've heard that people will not vote for you if you go knocking on their door when a football game is on.
Sunday, especially when football's on, football's not as important up here as hockey is. Hockey's religion, right? Hockey's God. But football, you can tick off a lot of people if you're knocking on the door during the Vikings game and the Vikings score a touchdown and help their fantasy football thing.
But have you heard a lot? I mean, yes, hockey is very, very big around here. But I don't think there's a team dynamic around here like the Vikings. So, I mean, I don't think that if you knock on a door when the Minnesota Wild are playing, I don't think too many people are going to worry about it.
You go knock on the door when the UNB Bulldogs are playing and find out.
You might get hurt a little bit, that's for sure. All right, so what are you thinking on the city council? If you were a betting man, who would you say for the races? So Joel has got it.
Joel's got it. I want to say Renee's going to get it, but it's going to be a little bit closer because this whole Republican angle that Howie's doing is going to add a little bit of votes, and the Democrats got to realize that out in West Duluth. The at-large race. Right now, if I were a betting person, Zach's got it, and there's going to be a toss-up between the 3 for that second spot. And I mean, there's others running. There's others running. What do they call that? Write-in ballot.
Right.
What's her name? The Republican lady.
Swanson.
Yeah, she's doing a write-in ballot. She'll maybe get 100 votes. Yeah, look at me. I got 100 votes because I'm a Republican and I don't know better, and I want to make Duluth great again. But hey, more power to you.
I look at the Republicans around here and wonder why they didn't throw a lot of money into the primary. They could have pushed people and got people in. I mean, right now we're dealing with the same fight that we had at the DFL convention.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, it's interesting regardless of where we go. So now let's go a little further because we did talk about that. I'm going to say that I think the key is going to be West Duluth too. And I think Janet and Barb are going to have a big fight out West Duluth for that. I think Rich, I don't think he's that well known out in West Duluth, so I think that's going to be a little harder for him.
I'm going to go after something. I'm a Mondale Democrat. I'm a Sam Solon Democrat. Sam Solon once told me, if you truly want to win in Duluth, you got to carry the Heights, baby.
Yeah.
So wherever the Heights goes, so goes the election.
And that's one thing with the Renee and Howie fight is when Jackie Hallberg ran out there against Gary Krause a few years ago. That's where she lost it, was in the Heights.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, she won Lincoln Park by a landslide, but she lost it in that Duluth Heights area because those hills are killer.
Yeah, they are.
Yeah.
Time and time again, you see Democrats that get close to front runners, and they tank it up in the Heights because when they take it for granted that, they're influential, they got more money up there, but they're as good as Democrats up there as they are in the Central Hillside,
right?
And you live.
I do remember, and then we'll move on to the other thing. I had heard from a politician one time that said you got to remember to straighten your tie on the hills or in the Heights and take the damn tie off when you're in Lincoln Park.
Yep.
So I mean that's important, and that was actually former State Representative Kerry Gauthier that gave me that.
Yeah. And Kerry is another one that I wish was still in office.
I do too. I like Kerry. He was definitely. Definitely got that bulldog mentality.
Yeah, he was one of us. He was a good Democrat.
He was a good man. So shout out to Kerry if he ever hears this.
Yeah.
Give him nothing but props. So now we're talking about other mayoral elections coming up here in 2017. We have the Minneapolis election and St. Paul, and these are kind of important even to the Northland because, these are the two biggest cities, the capital city, St. Paul, and it might make a
St. Paul's. All right, let's be honest, all right? St. Paul is almost all but locked up. They're going for that, Carter.
Yeah, Melvin Carter. Melvin Carter the third.
I mean, God bless the other three, but Melvin Carter's too well liked. I mean, I think the world of his wife. I mean, I did 9 conventions this year in and around the state. I go to all these different. Melvin Carter's wife busted her butt about as much as Melvin Carter did, and they were all over. So that's that. St. Paul's all but done, all but the crying.
Yeah.
And they're going to make history. They're electing the first African American mayor of a major city in Minnesota, which is, good job.
Yeah, that's pretty awesome. And I know Melvin Carter's mom, Tony Carter. She's one of the county commissioners in Ramsey County, I think.
Yeah.
So yeah, she's phenomenal. They do care a lot about homelessness, which is what I work on. The 10-25-50 homeless project. So shout out to them. Gotta get my little links in every time I can. But the Minneapolis mayoral election is one of them that I think might go down in history and is one of the weirdest elections.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think that the DFL has nominated anybody. 4 years ago, they had the pizza party, the famous pizza party now.
I was at that pizza party.
With Betsy Hodges calling for pizza, and then they called a quorum call. And the quorum call is you close the doors and say, okay, everybody in here and count and see if there's enough delegates to make it. And of course there wasn't, because everybody was outside enjoying a slice.
The Duluth DFL convention, they had a quorum call to end it there.
Yeah.
That's where a lot of the people got the idea from.
I think, just bringing it out there, that's one of the things that Rick Stafford would do, is he would probably pull off something like a quorum call like that.
No, it was Rick Stafford's idea at the Minneapolis convention. I know, because I was there.
God bless Rick Stafford.
One of the best, and he's going to be missed.
One of the best. So,
but you know what's the kicker about Minneapolis and St. Paul? They got that ranked choice voting. Even though we took a whooping to them up here, and well, we can just cast our only vote for the right way to do it.
What would that? Okay, let's just shoot from the hip here.
Mm-hmm.
All right, we're gonna get away from the cities for a second. What would that have looked like if we had ranked choice voting here?
Rich Updegrove would have been the first voter.
Really? He would have beat Zach, you think?
Would have beat Zach.
Wow, that's interesting. I wouldn't have thought that.
Rich Updegrove is well liked by one group of faction in the DFL, and he's liked on the other side of that faction.
Yeah.
And where Zach is well liked by one faction of the DFL, sadly he is so with that other faction. Even though I don't get it, because Zach's about as environmental as the rest of them.
Right.
But that's a whole nother podcast.
So you think it would have been Rich first, and who would have got who would have got second in ranked choice voting? Now you got to think that all the candidates would have been there, all the ones that signed up. So Jen Swanson would have been there.
I would have said maybe Janet Kennedy.
So I mean, it would have been switched from. It would
have been polar opposite.
Wow.
You got to remember, a lot of votes that the DFL are getting from the moderate Republicans, you know, like Zach and Barb are getting a lot of the moderate business Republicans, and like it or not, I mean, you know me long enough, I'll tell you the truth if you don't like it or not. That's where Zach and Barb are going to carry it in the end. They're going to get the moderate Republicans, or they're going to get all these people that don't support the Democrat. They're going to get their second vote. Where Janet Kennedy and Rich Updegrove, they're going to get the far left side. They're going to get their votes, but that second vote, it's going to be split.
Yeah, I can definitely understand. I think that it would be a different world that we live in if up here we had ranked choice voting. I think there would be more candidates. More people would throw out and say, "Well, I can just start in September, October. I don't have to go to all these things and start my campaign now. I just hit it hard." And
I think it'd be more confusing. We wouldn't have as many people turn out to vote. And the only people that would have benefited out of ranked choice voting, like they do down in cities, is the ranked choice group.
Fair Vote Minnesota.
Because not only do they champion fair vote, they champion ranked choice voting, their other subgroup is the one that gets paid big money to sit there and teach cities on how to run ranked choice voting. So they get the double dip on that.
So
that's where they make the money.
They're making a little bit of money. Now, I do have a few friends who like that ranked choice stuff. So I'll make sure I'll get a whole bunch of stuff having to deal with that. I haven't heard Twitter go off yet, so we haven't pissed off anybody that bad yet. That might be listening.
We're gonna work on that.
We'll work on that. Minneapolis mayor, we'll go back to that. So Betsy Hodges is the current incumbent. And by the way, the St. Paul mayoral election, we said it's wrapped up. It's Melvin Carter who's going to win. But Chris Coleman was the mayor there, and now he's going to be running for governor. Mm-hmm. So he's not running for another term, though. So just wanted to get that out there. Betsy is the incumbent over in St. Paul, or Minneapolis, and she's running against quite an interesting field of people, including Captain Jack Sparrow, who surprisingly did not get the nomination of the Pirate Party. Did you go to that convention?
No, I did not, but I heard about that convention. There were a whopping 100 pirates there at that one, and the ale was flowing freely at that one.
Oh, it ended with a quorum call when they were out of rum. Okay. Oh my God. Oh. All right, so Betsy's running. Jacob Fry is running also. Current city council.
Jacob Fry, city council. Then you got Raymond Dean.
Okay.
And then you have the nice lady in charge of the NAACP.
Levy Pounds.
Yep. And they got the Hennepin County Attorney Tim Hoch, H-O-C-H.
Okay. Now, I don't know Tim that well. I have heard of Ms. Levy Pounds, as there was a lot of stuff that happened when that shooting happened down there. And
Well, here's the bottom line on that one. It's all going to be down to their second and third votes at Minneapolis. It's probably going to take 3 or 4 days, which is another reason why. And right now, if my gut went, Jacob Fry and Betsy Hodges are going to duke it out. And it's kind of come down to like the silverest thing. What hurt Betsy Hodges is that when tragedy happened down in Minneapolis, when people are getting shot, you don't take off down to California for a fundraiser. You just don't.
Right, and I had heard about that too. Now do you, I remember at the convention, at the DFL convention that I was following online, and you were there at the Minneapolis convention.
That's the one I didn't lose a tooth in.
Right. Oh, you are definitely dedicated to these conventions. Joel is normally the sergeant at arms. He's built like a brick house, so he can. And he almost lost a tooth at one of the conventions.
Ward 9. I lost it. Shout out to Lana Condro in that district there, Ward 9. Midtown, God bless Midtown. I love it because they got the best Chinese buffet when I'm down there. But I lost a tooth when 2 gentlemen were fighting over something that their great grandfathers did.
Now that was not the big blow off convention either.
No.
That was 6, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Oh.
But God bless the Democrats down in Minneapolis. They sure love their politics.
They do.
But the Minneapolis convention, Betsy Hodges came in third. Raymond Dean, the Bernie Sanders supporter, the former, he's still a state rep down there. He's well liked, but the only question I have about Raymond Dean is could he or can he still raise the money? And I mean, you could have the ground game, like in English election, right? You have the Labor Party candidate,
Jeremy Corbyn,
who had all these young kids excited about it. But the bottom line is, you could have all these kids excited in one group of the town, but the rest of the town, if they don't support you, you ain't going to win.
Right. And that's why Theresa May is your prime minister over there.
Yes, it is.
Jeremy Corbyn is definitely a surprising fit into the Labor Party. He's not a
Bernie-esque candidate.
Yeah, he's not the normal Labor Democrat kind of person over there. So it's weird.
And then the one I don't get is, I mean, they're pitching, he's going to be ready to go. But, over there, you need to win your MP spots. You got to win members of parliament. And then the members of parliament decide who the next prime minister is. They still got to sit there and poop out 36 seats between now and the next election. And we're going to go into some areas like in Duluth, where if you're a Democrat and you're the Republican bucking for governor, you just ain't going to win.
Right. Well, every vote counts. Like over here,
yeah.
It doesn't for president. I mean, you win a few states and you're golden crisp.
But Raymond Dean, top vote getter, worked his butt off. Had a hell of a campaign at the convention. His troops were all over the place. Top vote getter, rightly so. He earned it, right? But I don't know if it's going to carry on over to November.
It'll be interesting. Before we got on the podcast here and talked about this, we talked about both going down to the cities, coming up here for a wrestling event, and I have a wedding to go to. It's going to be interesting to go down there and see all the yard signs in Minneapolis and St. Paul.
Oh, it's impressive sight to drive down a road and see different lawn signs pop up out of nowhere for different mayor candidates. And then you see about 4 different mayor candidates in one yard, and you got to remember that there's ranked choice voting.
I kind of want to get my picture taken with a Captain Jack Sparrow sign. Just saying. I think that would be cool.
And I got Glenn Jackson, a dear friend of this show and a dear friend of ours. He's got a Captain Jack Sparrow button. And I got a Captain Jack Sparrow business card. I met the man. It is a hoot. him and his urban housing Occupy movement activities committee.
I love this guy. He'll never win, but he's like the only savior of Minneapolis mayoral elections. So who do you think? You think Jacob Fry and Betsy's gonna fight it off?
But my surprise is this Levy Pounds. I think she's gonna get a lot of third votes.
Okay.
I don't think she's gonna win, but she's gonna do enough to sit there and get people talking, going, "Oh, look at how well she did."
I'm surprised Betsy's still in the picture after everything has happened. So I mean, you know, big kudos to her that she's still in the.
Her
in
problem
the picture.
is she can't pay her staff right now.
Oh yeah, I'm hearing about that too. Yeah, you know, there's a lot of problems with that. We don't have that many problems here because it doesn't get brought up. We don't have ranked choice voting like they do down there.
Yep.
So now, after this election is done and over with, and even probably before.
Going on right now.
Yeah, we'll have conversations about the 2018 elections and the congressional elections. So, you know, how many seats do we have to win in the House, the U.S. House, to take it over?
23.
23?
23 in the House and 4 in the Senate. 4 in the Senate.
Yeah, I thought it was 3.
3, no, 4 because you got if you ended a tie.
But yeah, right now it's 52-48 in the Senate. So yeah,
you need 4.
Yeah. So
and it's a year where the Republicans have a stronger majority. So even if we try in the Senate, I don't think we're going to gain the 4. I don't think we're going to lose.
So one of the races is Jeff Flake. He's running in Arizona, and he's actually running against Kristen Sinema, who just announced, and she's been up here in Minnesota that actually spoke with Al Franken. And she's already in Congress, so I mean that's going to be quite a big fight.
In the way that old Donald is crapping all over his fellow senators, and that's going to be as exciting as the governor's race in Minnesota.
I mean, they have primary races. He's actually facing off against Kelly Ward for the Republican primary. And then they would have to face off against Kristen in the general, if she wins the general election.
Eat their own.
Yeah, it's looking pretty looking pretty vicious. Now up here we have an election with Rick Nolan, who's the current congressman. He's going to be facing off against somebody we've already spoke about, Pete Stauber. And then now we have a dark horse in the race, and that's Skip Sandman, who's in the race.
Then you have that other nice lady that is from Two Harbors. She'll announce this week.
And she's running as a Democrat?
She's going to run it. She's going to primary Rick Nolan at the convention. And I'm not too worried. I'm not too worried right now. Rick Nolan's, I wish I could remember her name. I cannot at the top of my head. Sorry, people, I'm old. But,
and I hadn't heard about it. So, I mean, if there's a candidate who's running against him, I mean... You had two pretty high-class people in Terrell Clark and Jeff Anderson trying to beat Rick Nolan at his own game.
And Mills Fleet Farm.
Yeah, and Mills twice.
I don't see Nolan losing. I see Pete Stauber doing good, but I don't see Pete Stauber raising the money to take on Rick.
Now, Pete Stauber actually said that he wants to have Donald Trump up here to talk about...
I've heard that. I've heard it from very reliable sources that Donald Trump will come up. He's going to come up either at the beginning of next year or towards the end. And I hope if we're Democrats, we're listening, because there's somebody I would love to get up here to counteract old Donald. I'd pay money to sit there and get the former President Barack Obama to come up here.
That would be a trip, because if Donald Trump came up here, and I might actually just go to that just to see what it's like, because that would be kind of a trip.
I wouldn't step 2 miles within that place.
I just think it'd be a trip, and I'm not on any DFL boards or anything right now, so I can.
Trump supporters bug the hell out of me.
Yeah, it'd be a trip to see how many people actually get kicked out.
We'd be trying like hell to get him in.
Yeah, it would be fun. It would be fun, regardless of where it would be. It more than likely it'd be somewhere on the Iron Range, because that's where they would probably put Trump. And actually, he did very well on the Iron Range.
He did. He did.
So having him up there, with Pete Stauber. I think that would be an incredible sight to see, no matter who you are. Just to have a current president up there, and then if Barack Obama came up to counteract that, I think we would be in for a good time politics-wise.
And while all this is going on next year, the Rick Nolan race, we have Amy Klobuchar up for re-election. We have a few other little municipal, county commissioner races up.
Right.
We have the governor's race, which is probably one of the most important races.
Now, Klobuchar faces off against Jim Newberger, who's a state representative.
Well, you got to have a sacrificial lamb.
Who was it last time? I can't remember.
Jim Johnson.
Oh, yeah, Jeff Johnson.
Jeff Johnson, who's also a front runner for the Republicans.
For the governorship, yeah.
Yep.
And, oh, God, there was a guy who ran against Franken who likes Chinese steel. I can't. Mike something.
Yeah.
He's a businessman. Mike McFadden. He's probably not going to run again. So the last thing we've gotten 36 minutes so far. That's awesome.
My God.
Yeah.
How long does this go?
We can go up to 3 hours, but I've got 55 more minutes to decide if I'm running a half marathon or not. So so we're gonna touch on the governor's race a little bit. And I went down to the state fair, and I'm down there. I see Tim Walz, and I see Paul Thiessen. And Aaron Murphy. I almost said Mary Murphy, but I don't think Mary Murphy is going to run for governor. There's just a whole bunch of people on the Democrat side that's running, and then on the Republican side, I saw Jeff Johnson was down there, and Matt Dean. Matt Dean? Okay.
Dean. Kurt Daudt.
Kurt Daudt, the current Speaker of the House. Matt Dean is actually the majority leader, if I'm correct.
Mm-hmm.
So that's a little difference there.
They're going to have an interesting convention, as much as we are. They're up in Duluth here for their governor's race, and we're down in Rochester. So I'd like to sit there and sneak into that place.
The Duluth convention, you can pretty much sneak in there because they keep that arena pretty open.
Yeah, sit in the cheap seats and throw peanuts and see if we can hit a Republican with a peanut.
And it's going to be in the old arena. It's not going to be in the Amsoil. It's going to be in the old arena.
Even better.
Right, because you can aim better.
But
that's where the chili cook-off was.
But look at the Democrat side. We got 7-8 good people that are running.
Yeah.
And they're campaigning already, and they're campaigning pretty hard.
So let's go through those names of everybody, because we kind of named them off.
Mm-hmm.
But I want to give everybody, because we're not endorsing anybody. We don't do that here on this show. But we're going to give that. And folks, I am totally Googling this, because I don't want to be mean to anybody.
No.
Yeah, I mean that's for sure. So for the declared people that we have so far for the candidates for the DFL is Chris Coleman, who I already mentioned, Mayor of St. Paul. Tina Liebling,
State Rep from Rochester.
Aaron Murphy,
State Rep from St. Paul.
Rebecca Otto,
State Auditor.
Paul Thiessen,
State Rep from one of the suburbs in St. Paul.
I think it's Minneapolis. And Tim Walz, who's a
U.S. Senator or
U.S.
House
Representative
member from Dunn 2.
Yeah, so it's Rochester, Mankato kind of area.
Mm-hmm.
Potential here on Wikipedia. It's just kind of Wikipedia deal. So the potential on that is Tom Bach.
I haven't heard Tom
His
Bach.
name got brought up. And Lori Swanson, who's the current Attorney General.
Lori Swanson would be a dark horse. Lori Swanson not only has been planning for running for the last 4 or 5 years with want to take a picture of me? I think right now she would be at the top 3 list for me.
Wow. Yeah, I remember going to the last convention that was in Rochester, and she was sending out lit. Her person was standing there pretty much here, and it was stacks of literature. I never seen so much of a waste of paper in my life. Declined running for the DFL primary. Of course, Mark Dayton, our current governor, not running. Deborah Hillstrom is not running. She's actually going to be
running for state auditor. Yeah,
right. She'll be trying for Rebecca Otto's seat. Amy Klobuchar is not running, even though she's running for re-election. Rick Nolan, R.T. Ryback's not running, and Tina Smith, who is our current.
That Tina Smith kind of heartbroken because I thought she would she would have been in the top 2, I thought.
Right.
And she would have made it to the if we don't endorse in Rochester, which there could be a possibility we don't endorse because of all these good people. I think Tina Smith could have came in there and it would have made that primary very interesting. And no, we don't do ranked choice voting for that primary.
Is there now you probably know the rules a little bit better than I do. If not, we have people who we can call on the Constitution Committee.
Yep.
I have good friends in that committee still. Is there a way that you can have a compromise candidate come in at a DFL convention?
We could.
Okay. So
anybody can get nominated from the floor as long as they screen and they go through the process.
Okay. So that is a possibility.
You could nominate Fritz Mondale, who I love to death. And if he got enough votes to get the endorsement, he would be our person.
Right. So now on the Republican side, you have Christopher Chamberlain, who I never heard of, who has no thing on there. Matt Dean.
Matt Dean might be interesting.
State representative. Keith Downey is the name that we haven't talked about.
Former chair of the Republican Party. Yep. He'll get dinged. We'll ding the tar out of him about. He ran the Republican Party into so much debt. Why are we going to let him?
Well, that wasn't that wasn't Keith Downey as much as it was the guy that was in there before that ran the taco shop. Yeah, it was Tony something.
Still, bottom line.
I can't remember what his name was. I totally got to Google this.
Bottom line is he helped put them under the table, and we're gonna pitch him like, you want this guy in charge who can't even control his own party, let alone run for governor and be our governor. So, I mean, it's interesting. The one thing I see here is we have a lot of candidates that think alike.
Mm-hmm.
So it's going to be damn hard to decide who you're going to vote for, who you're going to support. I mean, I have my favorites, but that could change.
Right.
It could change at the drop of the hat.
So Keith Downey is one of them that's on there. Jeff Johnson, we've talked about quite a few times on here. David Osment, he's a state senator. Have you heard too much about him?
No, the Republicans. I don't pay attention.
Philip Parrish, who actually was a candidate in 2014 for U.S. Senate. I don't know who that is. Also, a potential. We got quite a few potentials here. Sarah Anderson, who's a state representative.
Yeah.
Kurt Doubt, who is obviously declared now. Tom Emmer, who ran against Mark Dayton 8 years ago.
Tom Emmer almost won.
And he's a U.S. representative now in District 6.
Yep. Tom Emmer would scare the bejesus out of me. Not only would he lock up all the Republicans to a fault, he'd grab a lot of moderate Democrats because he's not crazy Republican. I mean, he's crazy Republican.
I think if you're in the 6, you kind of have to. The person who was congressman in the 6 before was Michelle Bachmann in that area. Karen Housley for state senator. Amy Koch. That's a very interesting name that got brought up. Former majority leader, first woman majority leader of the Minnesota Senate.
She could be she could also be a lieutenant governor candidate.
I think she'd be good. I mean, because she's out there. She's got her name out there and everything. Mm-hmm. She works for the Holden Law Office down in Minneapolis, St. Paul right now. She's making it known that she wants to run for office again. So there's something there.
There is.
Mike McFadden's name got brought up in here. I don't care to even talk about that.
Tim Plenty?
Tim Pawlenty's name actually got brought up there, and Mary Pawlenty's name got brought up.
Well, Mary Pawlenty's the brains in that outfit.
Yeah, she's actually a former Dakota County District Court judge.
She's the brains in that outfit.
Yeah, that's quite an impressive deal. That's why Tim Pawlenty didn't win president. Two others that got Eric Paulson, a U.S. representative, and Julie Rosen. I actually thought she was already declared.
I thought she's declared.
Yeah. Declined, of course, Michelle Bachmann, Michelle Benson, who ran for lieutenant governor in 2014. Jesse Ventura is a potential, but I highly doubt that's going to happen. The other ones, third party Chris Wright from the Now Marijuana or Legal Marijuana Now Party, and Cale Riggs, who I don't know either one of them.
And just a side note, all 4 candidates that were up at the Fond du Lac Tremblant Community College debate here last week, all 4 of them say that they support legalizing marijuana in Minnesota. So score on that one.
Yeah, I mean, that's one thing I think that, I made a podcast a long time ago. I'll probably update that in the whole legalizing marijuana thing. It is legal for medical right now here in Minnesota, but it's not legal for medicinal purposes. So,
the bottom line is, if it helps people, I mean, the VA, they haven't caved in, but we qualify for it with PTSD and TBI. If it works, it helps people. People die in car accidents driving out with booze. I haven't heard of somebody taking a toke off a bong and causing a car accident yet.
I was actually listening to an interview, and this is going to be like the weirdest segue over to the interview. I was actually listening to an interview with George Michael before he had passed away. He was on the show called Parkinson. It's on BBC One. And I love my British stuff. Yep. And he talked about him getting busted with a lot of pot. And he said, I don't drink. It's not my thing. I smoke pot. That's what I do. And he goes, I've never heard of anybody smoking up a whole bunch of pot and then beating their wife. So, and that to me just made me laugh so hard. But, yeah.
We sit there, we pass it. We let people work on their glaucoma. We tax it, and there's our roads and our schools paid for it. Yeah. Nobody would care 2 bits. Colorado is doing great. They're doing bigly.
They're doing bigly. And speaking of bigly, that reminds me of the big leagues that are coming, and I want to give a shout out to all our good fans and friends and family. I have family out in Colorado. Mm-hmm. I'll be seeing them in May for the Colorado Rockies 5K to end homelessness, which is 5,000 people running mile high. It's going to be a really great time hanging out in Denver, doing that. So.
And on top of that, I want to send a big mad love to the people in Puerto Rico.
Big time.
And I know people are struggling, and I know they're probably not listening because they don't have power yet, because our federal government likes to sit on their ass and do nothing right now. But when people are hurting, we got to step up and help.
I think that our president, and normally I don't say too much about hate or like too much of that, but I just gotta say massive thumbs down to the way we've been handling Puerto Rico. The fact that he thinks it's in the middle of an ocean, it's an island with big ocean water and all that. I mean, that's just a bunch of crap.
The ocean is bigly.
It's bigly. We got to take care of our peeps in Puerto Rico, in Texas, and in Florida too, because that damage is not completely taken care of yet.
And the bottom line is, we have important decisions coming up in our life, whether it's this November or next one. You see what happens when people don't get out and vote. We get somebody put in the White House that doesn't know what he's doing. He can't keep a administration together. People get out and vote.
So do you think, and I remember saying that we weren't going to talk about this, but I just got one question for you, and then we'll wrap this up here on the Scott Show. Do you think that the only reason Donald Trump won the election in 2016 was that the Republicans were less broken than the Democrats?
Yes.
Okay. I think that too. And that's kind of a quick answer, but I mean that's what it was. I mean the Democrats were way too broken for their own good after
we ate each other up bad in the primary. We continued on, and we're continuing on to this day, taking sides. And the only thing that hurts the DFL worse is us taking sides, because in the end we're going to get people like Donald Trump elected, or the Republican in Minnesota for governor, and the next thing you know, here goes right to work, there goes your unions, there goes all your living wages, there goes all your $15 an hour, there goes everything.
I'm amazed, and this is just something on the whole $15 an hour thing, because so many people are fighting for that, and then they're fighting against it. That's such a strong push for me, $15 an hour. Right now, I mean, it's right around $9.50, $10 an hour. But 15, it's such a heavy jump that I think it turns some people off and saying, well, wait a second, wait a second here, and I think that it gets people to think about that a little bit more.
But when costs go up, like milk or bread or gas, and you're still stuck at the minimum wage of $8.95, and you've been at that for like 4 years now, and the cost of increase is going up, pretty soon that middle class, which is the brunt of all the taxes, it's the brunt of everything, they're going to start struggling, and then our country's going to go into the tanks.
Right.
So $15 an hour is what a lot of good people say is what minimum wage should be right now in this country with the cost increases going on.
I mean, I agree with that, but at the same time, I think that there should be some increase. I'm not going to say 15, but there should be some increase. Because the small business is the only thing that gets hurt. I think one of the things that gets hurt.
You can always sit there when you pass a bill. You can always pass a bill that you can grandfather in their companies that are like have 8 employees or less. St. Paul has it in their bill, where if you got a company that has 8 employees or less, they're not part of the $15 an hour.
Okay.
It's places like McDonald's, Quick Trip. Here in Duluth, it would be like the banks.
Quick Trip.
It would be the Quick Trip, which is, don't get my 10-year-old started about Quick Trip taking over the world. But, I mean, people need to make it in this world, and we're not right now. We're
That's
struggling.
true. Well, that's why I'm still in business. So there you go. So it's going to be very interesting looking forward at politics. We will totally do this again. We have almost gone an hour, so obviously I'd like to thank everyone involved in the Scott Show. I want to thank Joel for coming in and speaking with me. And I've got 40 minutes until I decide whether or not I'm going to run a half marathon.
You can do it. You can do it, Bobby Boucher.
And then I will be back at 6 o'clock in the p.m. to give my final count on whether or not I'm going to do that, and then probably hit the gym regardless. Only reason I'm not announcing now my plans because I'm 99% sure of what I'm going to do. But 7,500 people can sign up. It's a little set up as a queue to make sure that you can get on there. If I can't get on there and pay and get it before anybody else does, then obviously I'm not going to do it.
Remember one thing: if you're doubting now, you'll regret when you get older.
Yeah. Well, and that's definitely set up for another podcast. But this has been the 435 podcast, politics podcast here on the Scott Show. I'm going to click this off right now. We're going to get rocking. I'm going to let Joel eat his chicken, and we will see you guys real soon. Have a great rest of your day. We'll catch you guys at 6 o'clock for the big announcement of the half marathon run.